The world is facing an ecological collapse, and the people in power has known about this since 1919, when UN first released their climate report, the ICCP report. Now today, 30 years later, the emissions is still increasing. So there's something that is not something strange here. How is it possible that the emissions is still increasing, even though science have told us all the background? Now, 200 species are getting extinct every day. And that will be a result from economical interest. And so today we have invited, I guess, a grassroots organizations. I'm not sure, actually. We will have to clarify that. Fighting for climate justice that is going to help us understand like the situation and what can we actually do to protect life on Earth. So I want to say welcome, Max. Welcome from Deep Green Resistance, who took your time to be here today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Spirit. Glad to be here.
So tell me, before we start, how's your energy level today?
I'm feeling pretty good. Yeah.
So you would have energy to do this interview. That's a good sign, right?
Yeah.
Now, Deep Green Resistance, it's I'm guessing there's multiple things you could talk about. And if you would start explaining Deep Green Resistance for people who have not at all heard about it, how would you explain the organization?
So usually I would start out by saying that our organization is a response to the ecological crisis, mainly. So you talked about that a little bit, but of course, everyone knows what's going on. If you're paying any sort of attention to the planet, to the news, to the world, you know that the oceans are dying, bird populations are collapsing, insect populations are collapsing, plankton populations are collapsing. The entire oceans, species extinction, as you mentioned. And we can really look at these natural communities as being like external organs. We have internal organs. We have our lungs, our heart, all of our internal organs. We also have external organs, and those external organs are the forests, the oceans, the rivers, the wetlands, the grasslands. We cannot live without these things. So in that sense, of course, there's no separation between humans and nature, and the idea that there is separation is a big part of the root of the problem that we are facing right now. The reality is that everything is getting worse right now. We're not significantly turning around these negative trends that we're seeing. And so despite the fact that environmentalism, for example, has existed for probably 70 years at this point in terms of mainstream Western environmentalism, despite 70 years of work, everything is still headed in the wrong direction. And based on this understanding, Deep Green Resistance is a revolutionary organization. So we look at this situation and we say, we need to change the situation fundamentally. And that means overthrowing or dismantling the systems of power that are continuing this destructive pattern. So we think this will be beneficial ultimately to everyone and every form of life on the planet. And we're committed to organizing around that.
So basically, you could say that the people in power, the government, would have abused their trust that they've been getting for quite many years now. And so this is a natural reaction that would happen because we're so close now to actually many people already are suffering, right? But we're close for the whole system that is kind of civilization ending.
Yeah, and I think even more so than that, I think that if you look at the powerful, if you look at the ruling class, if you look at the extremely wealthy, if you look at the institutions and the people who dominate the planet, they benefit from the destruction. They benefit from exploiting workers, from paying low wages, from cutting down rainforests, from vacuuming fish out of the ocean. So it's not really like it's an accidental situation that has arisen. the destruction of the planet has been done deliberately by people for their own benefit, for their own privilege, for their own wealth. And I think there is a reason why some groups of people throughout human history, largely indigenous and land-based communities, have looked at the earth around them and the natural communities that they live in and have said, we are a part of this community, and destroying it would be the wrong thing to do, ethically, morally, spiritually, environmentally, in terms of our own future and our children's future. But Western culture, the dominant culture of empire that we live under today, has seemed to have lost this really fundamental, basic human understanding. And instead, this sort of mindset of exploitation has become normal. And, in some ways, we could look at this as like an abusive pattern. You have probably heard that, if a child is abused, then often, of course, that will have impacts on them for their whole life, and they are then more likely to become an abuser themselves of their own children or something along those lines. So this cycle of destructiveness of the earth is really a cycle of abuse in which, our communities are really not very healthy right now around the planet in general. And as a result, we're getting these people coming out of our communities who are very unhealthy, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, socially unhealthy. And these people are the people who are ending up in positions of power, making decisions about cutting down the Amazon rainforest and vacuuming more and more fish out of the ocean. And those decisions are profitable, so those people are going to be then given even more power and even more wealth. And so it's become a self-perpetuating system, and it's obviously at this point threatening life on the planet.
Thank you for that, the overall picture. It really helps to start in that direction. So if I understood it correct, Deep Green Resistance do have a strategy to handle the situation. Could you tell us more about this? What could people, if people would, for example, join the movement, what would happen? What kind of action are we talking about? How are you dealing with the situation?
Well, maybe one of the first things I would say is that one of the most important qualities for revolutionaries is patience. And I think that is true because a lot of people think, when they think about revolution and big changes, they think that that's something that we can plan out and make happen. We can sort of say, okay, we're going to create this plan, and then we're going to carry out the plan, and we're going to win. That's generally not how big social changes actually happen. It tends to be a lot more messy, and it tends to be based on opportunities that arise unexpectedly. So for us, a lot of our work is in training, it's in building experience, it's in preparation and organizing, so that when opportunities do arise, then we're prepared to take advantage of them. So based on that understanding, one really important element of our work today is solidarity work. And we try to be involved in and support and travel to and participate in various resistance campaigns. So many of my comrades traveled to Standing Rock, for example. I myself and many of my friends have traveled to the Unistoten camp up in Canada, which is stopping pipelines on Indigenous lands. And another example would be, I was involved for many years in fighting tar sands extraction in Utah, where they're trying to put in a tar sands mining project. So traveling to these projects, taking part in the resistance work there is good for its own sake, but we also look at it as a training experience and an opportunity to gain experience and skills that help us become more competent and more connected and more organized for future opportunities.
So have I understood it correct then? If you take your body, a part of the training would be to take your body and then block, for example. You said tar sand extracts. I'm not sure about the word tar sand. What does that mean, tar sand?
Tar sands is a type of oil extraction. So I'm not sure if you've heard of Canada has the tar sands, which is uh, a huge industrial project. And it's essentially oil that's very low grade, low quality oil. So it's not like liquid oil down in the ground in a geological layer. It's actually tar. It's this thick, dense substance that's mixed in with sand and rocks and sediment.
Hmm.
And so to extract it, you're actually strip mining. You're scooping all the earth out, and then you're heating it and basically separating the rocks and the sand from the oil. So in the end, you just end up with oil, but it's even more energy intensive and destructive than normal or conventional oil extraction.
So when you go to that tar sand extraction, what would you do? Are you saying that you're blocking the machines they're using? How is this working?
Yeah, I've been involved in direct action campaigns down there, and we did things like climb up on the machinery while they're actively working on the site and locking ourselves to the machinery and trying to stop their work for as long as possible. So I've been involved in campaigns like that. Another example would be we did a blockade of a coal train that was carrying uh, probably, I'm not sure exactly how much coal. It was over 100 train cars full of coal. So possibly millions of tons of coal being carried on this train. And we've set up blockades of those sorts of things. So yeah, I mean, that's certainly a part of our strategy. And I think in the future and in different contexts, people may even escalate to sort of even more confrontational actions. And we're supportive of eco-sabotage in situations where it's done strategically, um, and that's the sort of action that we're talking about.
Thanks. That really helps to understand.
Yeah.
And all of this compared to also, I'm guessing when you say you're preparing, would be education, going to workshops, and so it's almost like a lifestyle. I'm sensing in the community.
Yeah, I mean, I I really look at these issues as not like a hobby or a side thing. I think these are the defining issues of our time, and it looks like you and I are about the same age, roughly. And I really think that these are the defining central issues of our generation.
Hmm.
And you know, either we're going to deal with them within a pretty short time frame within our lifetimes, or we're going to leave a completely devastated world for future generations if they even get to exist at all. So I'm not saying that I'm not saying that I don't have a life outside of this organizing, because there are plenty of, I've got a family, I've got friends, there are plenty of things that I like to do for fun outside of organizing. But I do center my life around organizing and resistance, and I make that sort of the pivot point of my life because it's incredibly important to me. And I think that in a lot of ways it feels like an honor to me to be able to do that, to be born at this time in the history of the planet where we are needed so badly, and resistance and clear thinking and wisdom is needed so badly right now. It's really an honor to be able to participate in that.
Hmm. That shifts perspective, saying it's an honor. I really like that sentence.
Mm.
Now we're getting closer to. We're gonna start wrap this up, and there's a lot more that I want to talk about. But if we would go for, I want to know, are the movement looking for any kind of support at the moment? How would you want to? What do you, if you could get a wish for the future? What's your wish here for the organizations growing?
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. There are a few ways that I think about when I think about how people can get involved. Um, we always need volunteers. We're always looking for new recruits. Uh, Most especially, and the thing that I think is most important for me as a wish, we need people who are really serious and committed. You know, we don't, we've had plenty of people over the years who come in and are just ready to volunteer with a small task here and there. And that's really important. Those people can do really good work. We have those people put to work doing translations, doing all kinds of helpful tasks. But I get really excited when somebody comes along who is committed and who is ready to dedicate themselves to the struggle. Another way that people can help is by bringing us to their community. So we do trainings, we do public speaking events. We're always interested in building alliances and relationships with other groups. So the second way is this sort of collaboration and alliance building. And the third way that comes to mind that people can support is material support. And this can be money, funding. It can also be food, supplies, housing, any sort of free services or discounted services that people can offer us. That stuff's always useful, but material support is the lifeblood of a resistance movement, of an organization. And a lot of groups sort of reject funding and reject trying to fundraise for their organizations, but it's incredibly important. And, you know, we're not spending our money frivolously, so that every donation is really helpful for a group like ours.
Now, is there anything you think most people don't know at this point that you really would like for more people to understand? If you would end this interview in that area.
One thing I guess that I would hope more people would understand about DGR is that people tend to think of us as an environmental group, and it's true. You know, I love the natural world. I spend my time on the river and hiking in the forest, and that's what I love to do. Those are the places and the relationships that I love. But we're also very different from most environmental groups. And that's because, like I said at the beginning, at the root, we're a revolutionary group. And we have more in common in some ways with other revolutionary groups throughout history. We have a different approach. We're not particularly interested in changing government policies or in symbolic protests or in mass popularity, becoming as popular as possible with people. We're interested in dismantling this entire destructive industrial system around the world. And that gives us a different mindset and a different focus. And that's a challenging idea for a lot of people because we are thinking big and we are trying to go to the root of the problems. And that's challenging, but it's also really exciting. And I think that the reason why DGR was so exciting to me when I got involved was because it took ideas that I already knew to be true in my head, and it actually articulated them and explained them. So it was like somebody was reflecting my own beliefs that I already held back to myself. And so I think it's time for us all to rise to the moment. I think that the situation is getting pretty intense around the world right now, and it's only going to get more intense in the coming years. And that is going to be very challenging, but it's also going to present a lot of opportunities to change the world in some fundamental ways that I think could be really, really beneficial.